Larry here with 7 Sage Law School Prep and another stick figure exam tip. This one is good paragraph structure and graphic design are important on your issue spotting exam. This is not a fundamental tip. Remember that we at 7 Sage believe in a 3-part way of mastering law school exams. You master the law, you master issue spotting by taking lots of practice exams, and you master your professor. This tip here won't help you if you haven't done those 3 things. If you have done those 3 things, I think this simple tip can help you a lot. So what do I mean by good paragraph structure and graphic design are important? I have a student who attended a top 5 law school. He did really well. One of the exams that he got an A on, he went to his professor. I have no idea why he did this. And he asked him to look at the exam again, maybe so that he would know whatever secret it was, although I already gave them to him, on how to do well in law school. As he went over my student's exam, he saw points that he'd missed, and the professor kept kind of frowning. And at some point, my student asked him, "So what's wrong?" And there was this mind-blowing statement. "Your exam was so well organized, I assumed you knew what you were talking about. Thanks, law professor, for not judging a book by its cover." For the sake of my kids, I'm trying to become less sarcastic, maybe 50%. This is not uncommon. And don't judge the professor for having done this. You got to get into his headspace and see what he's seeing to understand why good organization on the page is important. Think about this. Most law professors become professors, this is a generalization, to escape law practice. It's really stressful and it drives them crazy. It drove me crazy. I'm still in it, but whatever. And to do research, to get into interesting legal problems that they wouldn't have had a chance to do in practice. Teaching was kind of secondary. It's not that they're opposed to it. A lot of them like teaching, but it's not the reason they went to law school. So if you look at the Facebook posts of my professor friends, they absolutely hate grading exams. It'll always appear in Facebook in late December and January. "Oh my God, I have to do exams." And I'm like, "I feel so sorry for you. Oh, you have tenure and all you have to do is write a crappy paper every..." Okay, let me dial that anger back. They hate grading exams. Now, imagine doing something that you hate even just once, 50 to 100 times. The exams pile up. They begin to look like hieroglyphics. It's really tiresome. And then to make it worse, most of the exams are written by students who are nervous wrecks. They're terrified of making a misstep. They don't want to leave anything out. So they write way too much and they want to hide their potential mistakes. And this works at a subconscious level by just pouring forth on the page. So pretend for a minute that you're a law professor. Really get into their head. Be sympathetic. Which of these would you rather read? Try to avoid reading the content for a minute, because if you read it, you'll see what nonsense it is. Assume that they're saying basically the same things. They're making the same substantive points. Are you more likely as a professor reading 100 exams in a rush to turn in your grades fast, to really spend time digging through this impenetrable paragraph to dig out the points that that student got? No. Here's you as your prof, and here is the nice Technicolor vomit that your professor has ejected onto the exam paper itself. Or would you rather read this in this format that basically breaks out the I of IRAC, the issue, into not even a full statement, it just says intent to kill murder by Colonel Mustard of Captain Kirk. Okay, so that you know the who and the what. Then a quick statement of the rule, the elements, notice careful use of abbreviations. ITKM's elements are killing of another person with malice aforethought, and then clear links to each of the elements when you're doing the factual analysis. As to 1, CM appears to have killed K because da da da. As to 2, CM appears to have planned his death in this family relation swing, blah, 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 blah. If you're a professor and you read this, you're like, oh, Jess, come to me. I like Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. You're not vomiting. You are making love to this paragraph because this student is confident enough not to bury the lead, but to break out each of the component parts of his answer and to stand behind it. Now, there's a flip side to this. If you really don't know what you're doing, if you follow my advice, you will. But if you've really done no studying, you might as well do this. Because if you try and break out what you don't know, it'll become obvious very quickly. But that's exactly why people who at least kind of know what they're doing still end up doing this. it's like exposing themselves. It's almost making yourself naked to the professor by doing this. You're saying, there's a risk that the professor will just identify the issue and say, no, you got it wrong. Well, that risk is there, but by making the professor dig to find out that you don't know what you're talking about, you're just going to make the professor angrier. So if you know what you're talking about, you want to do this. If you have the fear that you don't know what you're talking about, I still think you're better off doing this and not angering the professor. If you really are clueless, you didn't do any work, and you get into the exam, I suppose you might as well do this, because this will be a joke for you. So again, doing this works if you've got the fundamentals down. Master the law, master issue spotting, and master your professor. But if you've done those three things, you want to show the professor that you know what you're doing. Even at a glance, the professor looks at an answer like this and thinks, consciously or subconsciously, this is a student who knows what she's doing.